Good morning, everyone. We are so excited that you are here with us today for our Unlocking the Science of Reading virtual conference. They focused on small groups. We have a really exciting morning planned, and I am just incredibly grateful to all of you for being here. We don't take it lightly, the fact that you are sitting here on a Saturday morning joining us. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for all that you do for children. I was really nervous this morning, and so I was listening to the Tracy Whedon Reading Lead podcast, and she said something that I really think set the tone for me. And she said that if we can read in the language of power, and if we can write in the language of power, and if we can express ourselves in the language of power, then we have a seat at the table. And that's kind of stuck with me because I think that that's why all of us are here right now, is because we know that all children deserve a seat at the table of literacy. And so just thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to be your housekeeper for right now. I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping tasks. The first thing is that we cannot see you or hear you, so whatever you look like is perfect. The next thing is we are going to be recording everything. If you want to share, like if you have a question or something like that, the Q&A is probably the best place to ask a question because your question might get lost in the chat box. Feel free to chat with everybody in the chat box, and we will be trying to moderate both the questions and the chat for you today. The next thing that I wanted to say was the times on the hub are slightly different. So let me share my screen for you. So you get to see that for a minute. I apologize. So on Zoom, it only let us do 15-minute increments. So this first session is going until 9:55. The second session will be from 10 to 10:45. And then the next session is 10:55 to 11:40. And then finally, it is going to be 11:45, I think, until 12:30. So it's not a big deal, but I just wanted to let you guys know that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you the lobby. Since this is a Zoom event, it's kind of different. So in the Zoom lobby, you should be able to see all of these different boxes right here, where it's got like Emily's session and Amy's session, and it says start practice session for me, but that's because I'm the host. So when it's time for that session, all you'll have to do is click on there to go to it. And so that is our hub. And the last thing, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Amy, and Amy is going to be sharing with you what the member area looks like. And someone asked if I could turn on the closed captions. I'm going to look at that right now for you guys. Okay. All right. We're looking forward to it. Okay, Amy, turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I wanted to just share with you what it looks like inside the member area so that you guys can know how to navigate that after the conference. So if you look, we have a welcome screen and then we have a tab for each presenter. And so some of the materials and slides are posted already. And if they are not, they will be posted by Monday. But what you can do is you can click on the boxes and scroll down, and all of the information that you need, the frequently asked questions, all of that stuff is there for you. So let's take a look at Heidi's area. And so Heidi has her welcome video there and her materials are ready to go. So you can click that and get the materials from her presentation. And then what will happen Monday is we will upload all of the recordings. So say you wanted to attend Emily's session on comprehension, but then you also wanted to watch my session on phonemic awareness while we are presenting at the same time because it's a breakout session. So you will be able on Monday to go back and watch the breakout sessions that you did not watch today. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. When you log in, you have to make sure that you log in with the email that you signed up with and the password that you signed up with. All right, Savannah. I'm going to turn this off. I think
Okay, so now it is time for Heidi to start. So when we were first coming up with the idea for this conference, we knew we wanted to have kind of a keynote. And so the first person who popped into my mind was Heidi. Her message is one that I really believe in, and she's so passionate about it all. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Heidi. And we are so grateful that everyone is here. Yes, Heidi is amazing.
Thank you so much, Savannah. Let me just make sure I do not have to record, correct? We're already recording? Is that right?
yes, I think we're recording. It says recording. I think we're good to go.
Okay, and can you all see my screen, from Balanced Literacy? Are we good with that? I feel alone. Yeah, Amy?
Yep, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I saw so many people from all around the world. And so I know some of you are probably up in the middle of the night or up really early in the morning. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here and joining this session live. I love to interact with all of you. So if you have any questions for me or anything, just throw them in the chat or the Q&A. And then everybody else is in here too, so they can kind of help if there's a housekeeping question or something that I don't get to. So Savannah, I was super honored when she asked me to be a keynote. I'm like, what? A keynote? Me? So I am so honored to be here. This is my first keynote, so bear with me. But I really am hoping to just inspire you. And I saw in the comments when you all were checking in this morning that a lot of you are new to the science of reading, or you just found this group of people and you're just starting out, or you just read a book. And so I hope that my story will really inspire you to keep going and really work at making these changes, because it's not always easy. So again, I'm really excited that you're here and you are going to learn some amazing things today. We have some amazing presenters, and I'm super excited. I'm going to be in some of those sessions as well. So I'm excited to learn from them. And I just want to say thank you for taking your time to make these changes and learn new things. So again, I'm going to share with you this morning a little bit about my journey from balanced literacy to the science of reading and how in the world I even got here today. And so my motto, or my thing that I started saying, is literacy and justice for all. It's on my shirt, and I'll be talking about that as well today. So just to start, a little bit about me. I have 2 kids. You might not know if you follow me on social media. You might think, what? I only see the one, or you hear the one. You hear my kindergartner all the time in the videos. But I also have a 19-year-old, and I like to kind of talk about that because when my daughter was learning how to read, I wasn't even a teacher yet, and I had no idea how to help her. So she struggled, and she still kind of does. And so it's been really eye-opening for me making this shift from balanced literacy to the science of reading with even my own children. I see such a huge difference in how they have learned to read. My husband, I talk about him because he is also a teacher, and now he is actually a national letters trainer. So I always say, if somebody asks me a question about the science of reading, if I don't know the answer, I'll go ask my husband. And if he doesn't know the answer, we'll do research and we will find it for you. We are all, I think everybody here presenting today are on a journey of unlearning. And so we are in this together, and we're working all together to just unlearn all the things and to be able to share them with all of you. I have been teaching for 11 or 12 years now. I know it's not even that long, but I just can't ever keep track. And mostly in first grade. I spent most of my time in first grade. Now I am teaching actually kindergarten and 4K in a virtual setting. So it's very, very different for me, but most of my time is spent in first grade in the actual classroom. So I'll be talking about a lot of those experiences this morning as well. Some of you might know me from Instagram and TikTok. You might know that I'm a little bit, just a little bit obsessed with orthographic mapping, or teaching, like how we teach sight words, I'll do this, sight words, um, and how our brains store words. Because in my experience teaching first grade, that was like my life, like teaching those. So I'm really used to presenting on that. That's normally what I present on. That's my passion. Like if I had to pick one area of the science of reading, orthographic mapping is it, where I feel the most passionate about. But when Savannah asked me to do this, I was like, yes, I think so. I really don't share a lot about my story and how I even got here on social media. So I thought this would be a great way to do that, and just to be able to hopefully inspire all of you. So I also put presenter on here because now I do that too. I just am so passionate, like everybody here, about sharing everything that I learn. And so I love to do that any chance that I get. So again, thank you for showing up today. What you are doing and what you are learning will change lives, and I want you to know that. So a little bit about my journey. When I was putting this presentation together, I actually was reminded of a lot of things that I had probably like blocked out or forgotten about. But now that I realize now, like without those experiences and without those things, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I really can look back now and be like, oh yeah, I can see why that happened. And isn't it beautiful when you can do that? Like you can finally look back on some like not so fun times and be like, okay, I see a reason why that happened now. So I'm going to share some of those with you today. I'm going to just share about how I even became a teacher, because I didn't really take the traditional route. And a lot of people don't know that teaching is actually my second career. So I got my bachelor's in sociology, and I was working in human resources. And then I got laid off, and I was actually a single mom at the time. And I was working these temp jobs, and I had this office job, and it was with a really good company. But I remember, and this is so weird because I literally can remember, like I can picture it, right? And I remember the day, and I was sitting there and I was like, I just said to myself, like, this is not it. This is not it. What am I doing? Like, I'm just pushing paperwork and I'm helping rich people get richer. And like, this is not it. And I really, that exact day, I was like, teaching was in my head. And, you know, as a kid, we all play teacher, right? I feel like at some point we're like, yeah, I want to be a teacher. But then I really just felt like that in my head, like calling me to do that. But it was really, really scary, because it meant that I had no money and I was literally risking everything as a single mom to go back to school. I was already in debt for paying my bachelor's, and I was really risking it all to go back, because the program that I was going to do was it cost more than my my bachelor's degree did. And so but I felt strong enough to do it. It was not easy. I went through a lot of hard times. I had my lights shut off, I had no food. But and it was really scary too, because I kept in the back of my head, there's always those doubts, like, well, what if I don't get a teaching job after this? Then I did it for nothing, right? And so it was really a scary time. But obviously, it all turned out well, and I was meant to do that. So I got my teaching certification. I did a master's of education program, and it was like pre-K through sixth. And I'm just going to mention a little bits and pieces here about, like, the science of reading. It was never mentioned in my program. And this program was a really good program. It's probably the best one that I could find in my area, and no mention of the science of reading. Then my second year teaching, my first year was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Most people are like, oh, my first year teaching. Oh gosh, I would never want to go back to that. I'd take that in a second. I love my first year. I had a principal who was ready to retire. I had a mentor teacher who was ready to retire. They kind of left me alone, which was okay with me. And I didn't really have a curriculum, so I could kind of like do what I wanted to do. And my class was great and we had fun. And then my second year came around and my principal left. A lot of teachers left, and we were actually identified as what's called a priority school. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with a priority school, but essentially it means that you're failing and that the federal government is going to step in and give you 4 years to turn your school around, or you get shut down. And so my second year was super chaotic. And we had DPI coming in all the time. We had what they called turnaround partners, who got paid a ton of money, millions of dollars, to come in and turn our school around. And so it was just very chaotic. Not to mention, I started that year for the first 3 or 4 months of that year with 36 first graders. Yes, I wish I could see some of your faces right now. I really do. 36 first graders. Oh, and 26 were boys. So like 26 is like a regular size class anyways, right? But I had 26 boys and then I had 10 girls. And my classroom was not big enough for that. No, it was not. I had kids sitting in chairs. Like I did not have enough desks for everybody. I had kids all around the outside of the room. Like it was madness. And then on top of all that, these boys were not just, oh, okay, you had some boys in your classroom. No, they were angry boys. And most of the time was spent evacuating the classroom and the classroom next door. We were connected and she had 36 first graders also. Same kind of thing. This was just like a group that was just like, oh my goodness. And I really thought at the time, like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, like classroom management, building relationships. Like I felt like that was my strength. I know that like, the administrative part, paperwork, that's like my weakness. I will procrastinate in turning something in all until I can't procrastinate anymore. But I thought I was super good at that. And then this class just like, bam, no, you don't have this. You don't know how to handle these kids. We have lights broken, chairs thrown. I mean, it was just chaos. And so in the middle of all that, we had the turnaround partners coming in to turn around our school. And really what they did was they pulled us from our classrooms to write curriculum. And looking back on this now, I'm like, I still get very angry. Like, what? Wait, what? We're paying you millions of dollars. And then I can literally remember sitting in the library, writing curriculum based on the Common Core standards, and hearing my kids. So they would put a sub in our classrooms and hearing my kids because it was chaos. And I'm like, I need to be in my classroom. Like, what is this? And I'm not a curriculum writer. I have no interest in writing curriculum ever. And so that was like what their idea was, I guess, of turning our school around. And that's really what I remember. I also remember having $150,000 worth of math materials, 6 different programs sitting in the library. And I'm like, I'm an Aquarius and I'm like kind of blunt most of the time and pretty open with a lot of things. And I was just like, are we going to use these? Can we use this money for something else? And now that I look back on it at the end of the day, they should have been training us in the science of reading. Why is that not the first thing that you did? And so this is still going on. There are still priority schools. We had 4 years to turn around. I stayed for 3 at that school. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this is one of the most important things. As teachers, you will all appreciate or hate this so much. They extended our school day. So on top of all of that, my school day started, it was 7:05 to, or 7:15 to 2:05. great hours. I really actually like those, even though I'm not a morning person. They extended it an hour and a half. So when we were identified as a priority school, we had to go from 7:15 to 3:35. So 8.5 hours a day with the kids. And that was a federal mandate. I'm like, look, we've all heard of this, work smarter, not harder thing. Like, why are we doing this? And then we started to look into it. We figured out that was a federal thing. Like, we couldn't even get out of it. And so for 3 years, I did that. And then I got pregnant with my son. So I was like, I'm not working these hours. And nothing was changing. So at the end of the day, I ended up leaving that school, and I ended up going to my elementary school, which was really kind of cool. And I actually got really lucky when I was student teaching. They placed me with my kindergarten teacher in my kindergarten classroom. When I got the placement, I saw her name and I saw the school and everything. And I was like, what? That's crazy. I haven't been back to this school since I was in the school, and I went to that school from kindergarten through 5th grade. So I loved it. And so, it's really weird too. And Savannah, I think, works at her elementary school too, but there's like a smell. Like, I went back into the school and I was like, it smells like kid, like when I was a kid. It reminds me of that. And so I started working there, and literally, I'm not even gonna lie, every day I went in there, I was like, it like took me back to my childhood. So there was like this sense of calmness there. But at that school, my experience at that school, we were using Lucy, very, very heavy in balanced literacy. All of we had instructional coaches who would come in and make sure that we were hitting all 4 points of the 4 points that Teachers College or Lucy Reader Workshop has you do. And so and I had to have her stuff posted up. I did not know about the science of reading at that time, but I did know that that I hated this. I didn't know why. And then I was like, you know what? Is it me? Is it me? A lot of people are using this, and a lot of people love this. This is a super popular program, right? And so I just tried to do as much as I could, implement as much as I could, and just make sure I wasn't being like me and just saying, oh, I'm not doing this. Because that's kind of what I do. And so I really tried. I really did. And again, I didn't know better because I didn't know about the science. I also was trained in reading recovery in 2020. And to be fair, I think that my district used their version of reading recovery, but most of what we spent our time on was learning MSV and running records, which, if you don't know, is not backed by the science at all. Actually, MSV is how struggling readers read. And running records, all of those kinds of assessments are just not what gives us what we really need to be able to really help our kids. And Rachel's going to teach you more about that today. But in my training, there were snippets of science. I actually found my training materials, and I went back and looked at them, and I was like, oh, there was this little teeny tiny piece on orthographic mapping, but then we just that's it. And I'm like, I didn't even remember that part because that's how fast it was. Almost everything was MSV and running records. And that is looking back now, that is the program that we use, even that our title teachers use for struggling readers. So even when my kids are getting tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, they're just not getting what they need. And this is so prevalent in so many schools. It's not just in my experience. And I know that now from sharing on social media. So anyways, how am I here today? I found out about the science of reading on accident. You're probably like, okay, so how did you get here? How did you end up even learning? You were just training reading recovery in 2020. How did this happen? So I'm really like a baby when it comes to this. There's a lot of people who have been studying the science of reading for a long time and fighting this fight for a long time. And so when it comes to looking at those people who've been doing this and fighting this for so long, I'm so new. I found out on accident. I was helping my son, and he had not started preschool yet, but he knew all of his letters and his sounds. Like both of us are teachers. We saw our students struggle, and my husband and I were like, we're going to make sure our son doesn't struggle, right? So we were making sure he knew his letters and his sounds. And then my typical next step was like, okay, well, I'm going to, let's start doing CVC words then. So I was working with him, and I remember my husband coming down the stairs. And if you've been to my orthographic mapping sessions, you've heard this story, but I remember my husband coming down the stairs, and he looks at me and he's like, what are you doing? Like with an attitude like that. And I'm like, excuse you. What do you think I'm doing? I'm teaching our son to read. Like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, he's not ready for that yet. And I'm like, what are you saying? Like, he's been teaching less time than me. My husband got his teaching degree like 4 years after me. So like him telling me something in the way that I am, I'm like, no. And so then he started talking about phonological and phonemic awareness. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And also, like, if this was true and if this was so important, somebody would have told me about this. Okay, so you don't know what you're talking about. And he had actually learned about that, not as in depth as we know now, but he had learned about it because he got his teaching degree after me. He went to the same program that I did, but at that time they had implemented something called the Foundations of Reading test. And so he had
Heidi, if you can hear me, you are frozen right now. So if you can hear us, you're frozen. Oh, you've got to love technology. This is just great, huh? Okay, so I think that Heidi might have logged off and she's going to log right back in and hopefully get us her story. It looks like she's logged back in now. Hi, Heidi.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened.
It is fine. This is our life. This has been our life since March 2020. We all understand. Don't even worry about it. I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. And can you make me so I can share my screen? Let me see. Oh, yep, I got it. Goodness gracious. I'm like, wait, where did I go? I just disappeared. Okay, so we're back and you all can see my screen. Okay, if you can't, let me know. Okay, so anyways, I forgot even where I was because I'm like, where did I go? Thank you all for bearing with. Thanks, Savannah. But anyways, I found out about this. That's how I found out about science of reading, honestly. I was researching to prove my husband wrong. And then I got really angry because I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me this? And I was just trained in this reading program that's supposed to help our kids. Why didn't anybody tell me this? Like, what? Somebody should have told me this. And then actually at the time, I went straight to social media because I was like, I want to follow every teacher who's sharing about this. And at the time, what I found was mostly dyslexia specialists, reading specialists, and speech pathologists. And I was like, I'm none of those things. I'm just a classroom teacher, but I feel like classroom teachers should know about this, right? So that's why I started sharing, because I'm like, hold on, I can't be the only teacher. I can't be the only one who didn't know. So it's like an emotional roller coaster, really. And it's like, I'm in disbelief, like, wait, what? And then I get angry, like, why didn't somebody tell me this? Somebody should. And I think back to all my experiences, right? Like priority school, millions of dollars to these people, and nobody told me, like, what? And then I think of all the PDs I've been to, right? How many hundreds of PDs are we're forced to go to, and no one told me. No mention of phonemic awareness ever in these PDs. And I think about all the kids that I could have helped if somebody would have told me. I think about that all the time. I think about the kids who I could have helped all the time. And it's like this cycle. And I still go through this cycle. And some of you might be able to relate to that, especially if you are, just learning now. It's like this cycle of feelings. But I will say that that anger really has fueled me to share everything that I've been learning about. And really, my goal, and when I share on social media, is to reach teachers like me. Like, I don't have my PhD. I'm not a researcher. And if somebody would have thrown a bunch of research terms at me, probably even if they would have came at me with like phonemic awareness, and use all these fancy terms, orthographic mapping, la la la, like whatever, I don't care. Like, I just want somebody to break it down. And so that's what I try to do when I share on social media. And so I just want to talk a little bit about like what actually is balanced literacy when we say that, or when I say it, at least, what is balanced literacy? And then what is the science of reading? And how can we create change? Right? So balanced literacy, I didn't finish my coffee, so bear with me. Balanced literacy sounds good, doesn't it? Like, it sounds good. I always thought that sounded really good. Like, yes, we need a balance, because balance is something we always strive for. And I'm also a type B teacher, so I'm really not a fan of words like systematic and structure. Like, yeah, no, not me. But I've grown to love those terms because I know that's what our kids need. And balance just really isn't it. And I'll talk about that a little bit. I found out that this term is used, but it's never really been true. So although we say balanced literacy, that term actually came about to try to end the reading wars. And this is a great book. I have it. This is always the book I recommend for people new to just learning about the science of reading, Know Better, Do Better. And so they really kind of get into the reading wars and all whatever happened. And so I learned from that book that the balanced literacy is a term that was used, and it was meant to end the reading wars. So, okay, let's do a little bit of balance, a balance between the science and a balance between whole language, and we'll just balance it out. We'll use parts of each. Well, in my experience using balanced literacy, it is way more whole language, and there's really no science in there at all. And that's in my experience from the programs that I've had to use and the training that I've had, and the ones that say balanced literacy. So when I say balanced literacy, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those programs that say balanced literacy, but they're really not balanced at all. And in reality, those programs actually skip a lot of the foundational skills that kids need. I was using balanced literacy for my whole entire teaching career, never knew what phonemic awareness was. So it's not really balanced. Also, just some examples of the whole language piece when I say that are things like skipping a word. Like, if you come to a word you don't know, let's skip it. We'll see if we can figure out what it is by using the meaning or using the first letter to guess a word. And also the belief that reading is natural, because it's not. Also, one last note on balance. It's really not even something that we should strive for. So like, okay, could we really balance it out? Could we, it hasn't been balanced, but could we do that? It's really not even something that we should strive for. Although it sounds good, kids are going to need different things at different stages. So it's never going to be, giving your kids what they need, having like 20% of everything, because, in kindergarten, they're going to need a whole bunch more of the phonemic awareness piece. And then you can still do the vocabulary and comprehension, but it's going to be less. And then when you get to the older kids, they're going to do a lot more with the vocabulary and the comprehension. So it's just really never going to be a complete balance, and that's okay. So I think we need to shift our mindset there as well. And then when we talk about the science of reading, I do just want to reiterate that the science of reading is not just phonics. So I think that's a huge misconception out there. I get at least that comment a lot, like, kids need more than just phonics to learn. When I share about the science of reading, I'm like, I know. That's not what the science of reading is. And if you are just starting out learning about this, the Reading League came out with a definition, and there's a whole PDF you can download. But really, essentially, the science of reading is just this huge body of research that has been conducted over the last 5 decades. Yes, 5 decades. It is not new. And so I get those comments a lot too on social media. Oh, this is just the next new thing. It's not. And it's this vast body of research that's been conducted over the last 5 decades about reading and issues related to reading. And it's been done in multiple languages in countries all over the world and in different fields, like different fields of psychology, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, education, linguistics, neuroscience. It's been done in all of those fields. So this is where, when we talk about the science of reading, this is where all of our information comes from. And a lot of it is actually even considered settled science. So just know that when we talk about the science of reading, that we're not just talking about phonics. Yes, that is part of it, but it's not just phonics. So the fact that this research has been here for this long, and it's been conducted in all of these different fields, and a lot of it is considered settled science, and the fact that we're not using it in every single classroom makes it a social justice issue. So that is why I say literacy and justice for all. There is no good reason why we are not following the science of reading in every single classroom, in every single school, in every single district around the world. And so the fact that we're not makes it a social justice issue. Like, there's no good reason why we're not doing it. And I see people all the time will comment and let me know and say, my district just adopted this program, and my district just adopted this program. And these are programs that don't follow the science, and we're just now adopting them. So we have a lot of work to do. And even now that I've built this community around me, and I follow all these other educators who are sharing the science, and I'm like, okay, yes, we're making progress. Then I hear from other people, and it's like, oh gosh, we just still have so much work to do. But like Savannah Shirt said, every child has the right to read. And if we are going to give every child the opportunity to learn to read, we have to follow the science. So I'm going to share just some statistics that I hope will stand out to you. And in my infographic that I gave you all, there's clickable images on there, and it takes you to all of this. So if you are somebody who wants to learn more about the research and these statistics, that is all on there for you. But only 35% of fourth graders are reading at a proficient level or above. That means that 65% are reading below proficiency. And that's not okay. Also, that number is actually, that 35% is actually decreased since 2017. So in the last 2 years, when this was done in 2019, it's gone down. And so I shared this statistic because it's important to, I have a lot of people on social media who will come and try to defend these programs. And a lot of people in districts will defend balanced literacy. Like, it's just like some emotional connection to it for some reason. And it's like, look, this isn't even a debate. The science is there and the statistics show it. And if you are like me, your school is probably pretty data driven. And so why aren't we following this data, right? And so in the last 2 years, the 2 years between 2017 and 2019, this number's gone down. This proves that what we're doing is not working. And the most popular programs in our country are not teaching our kids how to read. And the data is there showing that. It's showing that. The National Reading Panel in the year 2000, now the National Reading Panel actually also came together as a result of the reading wars. They're like, okay, which one is true? Like, should we be following whole language? Should we be following this? And so the National Reading Panel came together to actually, present some results and some findings to the government to show how we teach reading. And they found that these 5 things were essential for all readers, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Those are the things that are necessary. And this was in the year 2000. And I get really angry about this because I'm like, I was teaching first grade, teaching kids to read for all this time, and I never heard of phonemic awareness. So, I mean, and this was done way back in 2000. So the information has been there. Only 51% of teacher prep programs cover the key components of the science of reading. So this is a huge issue too. Whenever I do my sessions on orthographic mapping, I take a poll if they've learned about the science, or even just phonemic awareness in their teacher prep program or in their college program, and almost always it's no. No is like 80% of the answers is no. Or I also added up, or did you get like touch on it? Did you even touch on it in college or in any of the PDs that you've been to? Because as teachers, we know we've all been to a million PDs. And they've maybe touched on it like my husband had, right? Like he kind of knew about it, but he didn't really know about it to the extent of like where we need to know about it to be able to help our kids learn to read. And then higher performing students made gains while lower performing students made no significant progress. And I share this statistic because I also saw this with the programs that were being used in my balanced literacy world. This is what it was promoting, really. It was helping the kids who already had that foundation get better, while the kids who needed that foundation were just, falling to the wayside. Like, and I didn't know how to help them. And the program wasn't helping them either. And our tier 2 and our tier 3 instruction wasn't helping them either. So I think these statistics are important to know because, again, many of our schools and our districts are data driven, and we have the data right here. So how do we create change? Creating change really means taking chances. And I hope that my story earlier about taking chance will inspire you to also take some chances. It's not always easy. And taking chances can be scary. But like, let's just start with small chances. Like maybe there's a chance to talk to your admin. Maybe there's a chance to talk to parents. Maybe there's a chance to just try something new outside of your program in your classroom. And I know that that's just not always easy. So how does change happen? And I'm going to kind of go through the steps that I took for making change and the things that I'm still doing to try to create change. And I want you to know that I've had more success creating change outside of my own community than I have inside my own community. So inside my own community has always been the struggle for me. And so if you are alone in your own community in this, just know that you're not alone. I'm with you. I have those struggles as well. And I've seen more people, and I feel like I've helped more people outside of my community than within. But the first step is awareness. And you are all here today. So I think that you are aware that something is not right and that there is that science out there. And now that you're aware of it, you can actually start making those steps toward change, but you don't know better until you do, right? It's like, I talk freely about not knowing about phonemic awareness and the science of reading in general, because that's just the truth. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. I think as teachers, we're always like, there's this pressure on us to know everything and be right about everything. And if you didn't know that, and I had those comments and I responded to those comments, if you're on my TikTok, how are you even a teacher? And it's like, just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean, and also, why are you blaming me? We should be blaming the system, because it's not my fault and it's not your fault if you didn't know about these things either. So you just don't know better until you do. And then it's like, once you're aware, you're like, go through this whole like unlearning process, right? Like you're going to learn and unlearn. And for me, it was tons of unlearning. I had to unlearn everything that I ever knew. And that's hard because we have, we spend a lot of our own money and a lot of our own time creating things. I have my whole basement full of centers that really revolved around memorizing sight words that I don't even know what to do with, because I don't want to give them to somebody else, because I don't want anybody doing that. So I just don't know what to do with them. And it's so much money spent on those things and time into prepping them. But it's like changing all of that is just hard. But we have to be committed to learning and unlearning all the things and growing our knowledge. And also want you to know that that just doesn't come overnight. And then finding a community. So even though I've been unable to find that community within where I am physically, I found that community virtually. And so find others on that same mission, learn from each other. And now there's this huge community of teachers sharing on social media. And so it's so great to see that and see this community just growing and have these people like on the same kind of journey as you. And then take action, start taking those chances. Start creating those conversations, changing some things that you do, share with somebody. And I'd also even include a fifth step here called perseverance, and I'd call it perseverance, because this journey can be hard and you can run into a lot of obstacles, and especially sharing on social media. Social media is just a beast, and you have to have some tough skin because you get some comments. And the good thing is, we have the data to back us up. So you have all taken at least several of these steps since you're here today. And I just want to say thank you for that. I'm just going to give you a couple more tips, and then I'll check the Q&A and answer a couple questions. And then it'll be time for you to get started in going into your other sessions and learning and unlearning all of the things. But just some quick tips to start. If you're like me, you're probably like, I just need to learn everything right now and I need to share with the world. And it just doesn't work like that. So if you're new to this, just start a conversation. Find someone who will listen. Hey, have you heard about the reading science? Another thing that I do tell a lot of people to start with, show Scarborough's rope. If you don't know what it is, you can Google it. Google Scarborough's rope, print out the picture and be like, hey, have you seen this? Can we look at our program and make sure that it's teaching all of these things, because these are all of the things that kids need in order to be a skilled reader. And I think our program might be missing a couple of these, and maybe we can kind of go over this and figure out how we can fill in the gaps. Just a basic conversation like that. Another thing is just to make small changes in your own classroom. And since you're here today, I'm assuming that you're taking this step and you're ready to make some changes in your own classrooms. Sometimes we just have to control what we can and leave the rest. So if you start to make those small changes as you feel comfortable, maybe people will kind of see that and catch on to that. And if they don't, that's okay too. I've always had that experience too. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to show them the data, and then they're going to want to do it too. But then they don't. But we can only do what we can, right? And then use the research. The good news, friends, is that we have the data and we have the research to back up what we're doing and why we're making the switch. And we have the research showing us exactly how kids learn to read. And so we need to do that. And we also have the data showing us that what we're doing isn't working. So we can use that as well. So use that research. So again, friends, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you feel inspired and that you learn a ton of new things today to take back with you and use with your kids in your classroom. And I just want to say thank you again for taking the time out of your weekend to join us, and know that the work that you're doing will change lives. Together, we can change those literacy statistics. And we have to, friends, we have to give kids. Literacy is the key to success. And if we're denying kids the chance to learn to read, we are denying them future success. So it is up to us to really give kids the tools that they need, unlock that code for them, and give them those tools to be successful, learn how to read, and have success later in life. So again, I want to say thank you so much. And thank you to Savannah for asking me to do this keynote. It's been so great being able to actually tell my story. I never ever do this. So I've had a great time, and thank you for bearing with me when I got kicked out. And I'm just going to kind of look at some of the questions. If you have any questions, will you share some of the tools that I use? Marsha, if you want to just add in what you mean, like tools for, which tools for what? And Sion, I think I'm saying it right. Rachel will talk all about assessments today. So her session is all about assessments. The data to show your principal, there is, it's if you download my PDF where Amy showed you in the beginning of the session, where it says download, there's clickable links in there and there's tons of info. I have linked you to some people who are doing the work on equity in literacy. Lacey Robinson and Kareem Weaver are two of my favorites, and I've linked you to both of them. So Unbound Ed is Lacey's program, and then Fulcrum is one that Kareem is involved with. And both of those websites have tons of information and toolkits that you could use to show. And then also the literacy statistics that I showed you are linked on there as well. And then I just gave you a little reminder of this, of some basic steps that you can take, but you can download that from the members hub, and that's all on there. My webinar on orthographic mapping is always live. I only do them live because this is different for me. Having a webinar, I usually do a meeting so I can see you and talk with you throughout. So I don't record them, but the next one will be March 25th. Just stay tuned for that. All right. So I don't see any other Q&As. I don't know if any of the other moderators have any that they want to share. I don't recommend any programs, friends. So I see a lot of questions about programs. I don't recommend programs because programs don't teach, teachers do. And here's what I'll say about it. And then if you go to my website, there's a list of trainings that I recommend, because what I do recommend is teacher training, because when you get this knowledge, no one can take that away from you. Like, I literally feel now that I could go back to my district, use Lucy, and still teach kids how to read because I know better. And so you really don't want to rely on a program. And every single program that I know of that, has been recommended that's aligned to the science of reading is still missing something somewhere. And so without that knowledge, you don't know that. So teacher knowledge is key. So you're here, you're doing this webinar, continue to do these trainings, continue to train yourself, grow your own knowledge, and don't worry about a program. It is nice to have like a program that's like aligned so you can kind of see and have that scope and sequence, but worry about that later. Really working about growing your knowledge, because again, friends, no one can take that away from you. You will have that wherever you go. And that's the most important thing. So check out, I do have training, my recommended trainings listed on my website. Schools have money for PD, especially if you're in a public school. And again, if you're in a Title I school, there's money for PD. I never knew that. I always worked in title schools and I didn't know that till like 3 years in. And so some of those trainings you can get reimbursed for, you can get paid for, but they're listed on my website, and my website is linked on that infographic that I sent to you. Yes, teacher knowledge is key. And Louisa Moats, I'm quoting Louisa Moats here when I say programs don't teach, teachers do. So you can have a program, but I always thought Louisa Moats, she's wonderful. She's the founder of the letters training, and I'm like, she needs to just write a curriculum. But now I know why she doesn't. She doesn't, because programs don't teach, teachers do. And she really wants to focus on training you and giving you the knowledge that you need to teach your kids without having to rely on a program. And programs change, friends. I mean, I don't know how many programs you've seen over the years. I've seen so many different programs. I told you we had $150,000 worth of math materials, 6 math programs sitting in just our library. And like, we're supposed to use like 3 of them at a time. I've had like 3 or 4 different reading programs as well. So that's always going to change. When you have the knowledge to do to teach your kids how to read, it doesn't even matter what program you use. So that's why, and I know it's frustrating sometimes for people, like, just tell me what program, I just want to know. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I won't do that. Just, yeah, title funds paid for you to take this conference. They will. They have the funds. And a lot of times they'll start pushing stuff at the end of the year because the funds aren't being used. You just have to request them. So ask at your school if there's funds for PD. And then I have linked all of my recommendations on the very front page. I have a where to begin page on my website, how to get started. And that starts with training. And that's right there. And all of those programs are linked there. All right, so the PDF I see a lot of people asking for, and then I think we need to move on because we're about to start our next session. The PDF is in the members area. So it's not linked here, but when you go to the website of the members area where you're going to find the recordings and all of that, and you go to my session, the PDF is found there. And just know that it's clickable. So when you download it, you can click on and go to all the different websites. So yes, friends, yes, in the hub, yes.
Thank you so much, Heidi. That was incredible. And we are super grateful for you. And I know we are sitting over here in the group chat, like just talking about how amazing you are. Everyone, if you have trouble logging on, I sincerely apologize. Do you mind stopping sharing your screen, Heidi? So I'm really sorry for anybody who happened to have trouble logging on. We tried our best to make sure we could get everything, and I know that it hasn't been perfect. So thank you so much for your patience and for everyone who's messaged me. It wasn't a bother at all. We just wanted to help you. So now what you'll need to do is you'll need to go back to the lobby and choose the breakout session that you want to watch. So there's going to be 2 options for the next 2 sessions. So just join whichever one you want. You should be able to leave one and go back in and watch a different one if you want. And so we are here for you and we are excited. And I'm going to go ahead and end this session so we can get started with the next one. Thank you, everyone.